Alright, so trying to create more content. So I decided I'm going to start vlogging. You got to understand first, I'm a dad. I pride myself in being a family man, but more specifically a dad, right? Because ultimately I control that role as being a dad, you know. The kids can act how they want to act, but you know, I'm an adult, so I ultimately control the relationship. I'm a proud husband as well. However, when you're dealing with another adult, ultimately I don't have control over that relationship. So in this vlog, you're going to hear a lot about, you know, me being a dad, right? You're also going to hear about, you know, me being a husband a little bit. You're going to hear about my active lifestyle. I'm very active. You know, I work out a lot, meaning weight training and running. I have a lot of interest. I love aviation, obviously. So I read a lot of aviation content, and I'm always trying to get those notches on the belt. We'll talk more about that, and maybe I'll just go ahead and mention it here. But you know, I pretty much have, on a technician level, and I'm learning new things every single day, but to my knowledge, I have all the technician level licenses and certifications available to me, meaning the A&P, which is the aircraft mechanic license, the FCC general radio operator's license with the radar endorsement, NCAT's AET, which is the aircraft electrical technician certification, and the IA, which is the inspector authorization. You can become an inspector if you've been an aircraft mechanic for 3 years and then have prove you have the tools, the facility, and the data in order to inspect aircraft. So anyway, so you know, I have all those certifications. I found out today about something else. Basically, there's all these little third parties that could come up with a certification, but SATCOM, there's like a SATCOM certification out there. So I'm gonna look in what it takes to get that exactly, and also one that I'm currently pursuing is called the CAM, right? So if you're an aviation mechanic out there and you don't know about these things, rewind it and look into it. Maybe I'll include the links down here when I'm editing or whatnot. And so obviously that's something else I'm interested in is video editing and being a videographer. So right now, you know, I own a small aviation maintenance company, and when I say small, I mean it consists of one person, and you're looking at them. And so I manage, you know, aircraft. I inspect aircraft. I work on aircraft and troubleshoot aircraft. I say aircraft because both jets and helicopters. I like to have a well-diverse profile. Just here recently, you know, I went to Tunisia to assemble a R-44 helicopter. I'm also a student helicopter pilot, and I'm working on some things, right? So I'm going to show you guys a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff in between making the, you know, semi-professional aviation educational videos that you guys have seen so far. And I'll go ahead and tell you, you know, right now in this one client space, I'm working on paperwork, and I'll show you something, you know, coming in here. I have a lot of it, and this is the part of being an aircraft mechanic. Now I'll also tell you this. I got this table just to kind of help me organize my paperwork, right? So 2 different airplanes I have in this, you know, operation. My desk over there, and this is paperwork. This is stuff that has to be done. This isn't just research stuff that I've chose to to print out or whatnot. This is stuff that I have to comply with, and so you always don't get to be out in the hangar, which is a lot more fun out here, right? And I got a couple of things due, meaning we're talking about scheduled maintenance and airplanes being on a scheduled maintenance program. So I got a couple of things to do to this girl. And yes, aircraft are always girls, always. So one privilege that's available to me that may not have been available to me if I decided to go work for someone is, you know, I always have some Bluetooths on. just in case I gotta, talk to tech support or something like that and have a tool in my hand. But the other part is I listen to a lot of audiobooks. You gotta be super cautious when you're working with someone though, because I once heard a story. And I'm gonna share this story with you for all my music listeners and the podcasters and those who like to listen to Audible, which is audiobooks. And if you're listening to music all the time, I would strongly encourage you to put something else inside your mind, like an audiobook or podcast. There's lots of them available, and I'm also going to talk to you about some of that. I'm always listening to a fiction and a non-fiction. I also start every single morning off with 2 or 3 of my favorite podcasts, because this stuff is just way too good to not use. So the story goes, there was a guy who was working inside of the baggage compartment of an airplane, right? So we're talking about where all the bags get put up. And he was doing something with the doors, I imagine. And so here you got a guy, a mechanic, he's working in the baggage compartment. He's, using both his hands to do stuff with the doors. And this is inside of a repair center. So we're talking about a maintenance shop. Another mechanic comes along. He has his headphones in, so he's probably jamming out. And he, without knowing the other mechanic was in there, he closes the baggage door, right? He closes the baggage door. The other mechanic who's inside the baggage compartment, his hands get caught inside the door. Smash! And now his hands are inside the door, and he's yelling for help. Help, 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 somebody come get me, whatever. And the other mechanic's outside the airplane. He has both his earbuds in, so he's jamming out. He doesn't hear this other guy. And so the other guy on the inside whose hands are smashed, right? His fingers are smashed, and he's, pleading, yelling, screaming for help. He starts smashing his head against the door, hoping that someone outside will hear him beating his head against the door. And no, that didn't work. Apparently, when they did get to this guy, he was like borderline passed out, hands smashed, blood trickling down his forehead, all because, another mechanic came along who was listening to his headphones and had become complacent. Didn't know who else was working on the airplane around him, didn't realize that someone was hurt. And so when they say you can't have headphones in because it's a safety concern, there's something to it. On the same token, even if you don't have headphones in, I know a lot of times earbuds and over-the-ear protection is recommended, which could basically put you in the same situation of not being able to hear everything around you. And so we got to keep our head on the swivel. You got to keep your head on the swivel. You got to keep your eyes open. And so that's one thing that I'll highlight, by sharing that story with you. And one thing that I'll highlight before I start to share with you guys different audio books and different podcasts that I listen to stay fired up. All right. Oh, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you the plan too. The plan right now is always keep a journal. I have a journal for every single client, and I keep it in their workspace to remind me where I last left off and where I currently stand. So there's something called a maintenance tracking program. Popular ones out there are CAMP. There's also AvTrack, but CAMP has bought out AvTrack apparently. There's also CMP, which is a maintenance tracking program for Gulfstreams, and there's also maintenance docs or flight docs, right, which is another maintenance tracking program out there. And so you have these, if you're with helicopters, a popular one is HeliTrax. And so these maintenance tracking programs are designed to basically take chapter 5 in every single maintenance manual, which is the chapter for scheduled maintenance. They put it inside this computer, and when you put in your aircraft times, it populates, it shows you what tasks are coming due based on the maintenance tracking program that has been designed for your aircraft. Or it's a lot of times you'll have to actually manually put in some of these maintenance tasks to reoccur every so often. Now the thing is you have to go in there every single time you fly the aircraft to update the total time of the aircraft or the total time of the engines, so the program knows All right, if a task is due at 2,500 hours, it doesn't just know that your aircraft has, the engines have, 2,450 hours on it. No, you have to tell it. You have to update the times in the program, and it will track when something is about to come due. All right, so that's a little maintenance tracking nuggets for you. So we're gonna dive in the maintenance tracking program. I'm going to see where my jets stand. I gotta be honest with you, I already know, because we don't forecast what's due tomorrow or what's due today. I'm looking 90 days out. I'm looking 90 days out, always. And then obviously I'll take some dedicated time and I'll look 6 months or a year out, so that I'm not surprised when I run a 90-day report, or just in case something takes a little more time. If I was going to take scheduled maintenance, if I was going to take a Gulfstream, like I just showed you, if I was going to take a Gulfstream out of house, then I basically want to reach out to some other facilities, service centers that do maintenance on Gulfstreams. I want to reach out to them and I want to get some quotes, and I'd want to start on that maybe 6 months out, maybe 9 months out, but 90 days is cutting it a little tight. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at the maintenance tracking program. I'm going to look at the things that we have due. If there's some things due, which I know there is, I'm going to print out the work cards, right, which is the task. It also references the data, and it also holds the mechanic accountable by making him sign off that the task was completed, his signature, his A&P number and whatnot. Also gives a slot for the inspector to come behind him and look at that. So I'm going to print out the work card. I'm also going to print out the maintenance data, which actually shows you how to perform the task. I'll read through all that information and then we'll get started. All right, let's see. Light here. All right, so we're preparing to do some maintenance, and the first thing that I want to do is I've printed off a work card. Now I'll give you an example of a work card. An example of a work card is, maybe I'll fix that for you. So it's going to give you the description. It's going to basically to give you a reference. It's also going to give you a place to put your signature, your date, and it's also usually has a place for the inspector to sign behind you. Now, in the aviation maintenance industry, we use the term double eye, which means that we have two pair of eyes on everything. If you work alone, meaning you're an independent mechanic, you're a director of maintenance and a mechanic, and this could apply in anyone maintaining any type of equipment. That could be the operator, right? You're the mechanic and then the operator brings it to you. For me, that's going to be the pilots, right? Because those who operate airplanes, we call them pilots. All right. So, nothing exciting going on here, but I want to start giving you weekly vlogs, and in order for me to do so, you got to record some things. Alright, it's morning time. We are on our way to work. We'll be at the office about 8:15 or so. Usually I start my mornings off at 0500, and that's 5 a.m. for all you civilian people out there. We start the morning off at 0500. Let's talk about that time though. You gotta learn military time if you're gonna be in aviation. 24/7 industry, they use military time. So for instance, just a quick review, it's pretty much regular. 0100 is 1 a.m., 0200 is 2 a.m., 0300 all the way up to 12 o'clock, right, which is 1200 hours. And then 1300, the clock starts all over. So once you get above 12, all you want to do is subtract 12 from it to figure out what time it is. So 1500 subtract 12 is 3 p.m. 1700 subtract 12 is 5 p.m. 1900 subtract 12 is 7 p.m. That's a little hack for figuring out military time. And after a while, you kind of just get used to it. So anyway, I try to work a standard schedule, even though aviation is 24/7 and it's just me as an individual contractor or a sole proprietor. And when I say sole proprietor, that's when you're a craftsman or you're a tradesman and you run a company. Maybe you don't run a company. That's what you are in the IRS's mind, is you're a sole proprietor. It means that you're making money as an individual. You're a sole proprietor. And then when you actually create a company, make an LLC, there's other distinctions that can go under that. You can still be a sole proprietor as an LLC. You can be an S Corp and you can be a C Corp. And so if you're a contractor and you haven't made any type of entity, you should consider it, because there's benefits that come along with the LLC. And so maybe that's what you guys will get out of the vlog, is to see the whole lifestyle, right? It's not just that I'm a craftsman, but also I'm a business. I hate to say that I'm a businessman, because it sounds like such a, like a real title. But yeah, I run a company. I actually run two, right? So the aviation maintenance company, and then everything that I do online as far as the podcast, the YouTube videos, and selling apparel, and some of the speaking engagements that I do. All of that is Birdcraft Technology. So the aviation maintenance company, we're all about performing maintenance, maintaining aircraft. The Birdcraft Technology, we're about fostering a culture of committed aviation professionals via online services. So yeah, business, morning, whoo, Friday, and that's what we're doing. I like to eat my breakfast inside the office, because 0500 wake up, 0530 workout till 6:30, back at the house, shower, get the boys ready to school, usually get them to school. This lady stopped in the middle of the road like it's okay. That's not okay. Get the boys to school by 7:30, which is absolutely awesome, because they don't have to be there until 8:30, but that gives them some playtime before they have breakfast. I need to stop saying that's one thing, is I've been doing more videography and video editing. Those man, just bad juju. So what else we got? So I live a active lifestyle, right? When it's warm outside, I like to longboard. And so today's mission is to get it done and get with the family, because I love Fridays. And I got work. I do have to work on Saturday for about 4 or 5 hours, taking the arrival of a Global 6000. An arrival we're talking about a line service function. And a line service, when I talk about line service, I'm talking about being a line service technician, marshaling aircraft, fueling aircraft, towing aircraft. Those are the main functions of a line service technician. Or, if you work for a commercial airliner, they'll call them a line agent. As an aircraft mechanic, a lot of times you got to perform line service functions, which is why I suggest, if you want to become an aircraft mechanic, get you a line service job, because there's usually a high turnover rate. They don't pay a whole lot of money, but you get familiar with the jets or helicopters. You get familiar with basic servicing, cleaning windows, some things that go along with that. And you're like, cleaning windows, Joshua, everybody knows how to clean windows. But when you clean windows on aircraft, you only clean them up. You can only clean them with an up and down motion. You cannot clean them in a circular motion, or you're not supposed to go side to side, or just up and down, because you want to prevent, it'll cause hazing, I believe it's what they call it, where basically when the sun hits it, it'll do weird things. So I mean, there's something to know even when you're cleaning the freaking windows, man. Or women. And speaking about that, you know, I spoke to Washington High School, Booker T. Washington High School here in Atlanta. Talked to a class of sophomores, and I talked to a group of high schoolers. And one of the things that I emphasized was that women can be aircraft mechanics too. You know, I see it probably, you know, I wouldn't say 1 in every 5, but, you know, I see it more often than not. Okay? And so, yeah, just be familiar with it. Just know that you know, women can be aircraft mechanics too. You can be pilots. I've seen Challengers come in, which you can Google that, Bombardier Challenger. I've seen Challengers come in that have a full crew of women. That means first officer, second officer, and no, it would be pilot in command, first officer, and flight attendant. Before I go have some breakfast, I'm gonna square away some paperwork from yesterday. So that's where we're at. I want you guys to understand that for me, the grind is about being the best that I can be. It's about making sure that I give everybody enough value, and it's about being the best. Not just the best that I can be, but the best that, when compared to others at whatever it is that I'm performing, I want to be the best at that particular task as well. And I'm sure that's a product of my like addictive personality, right? You know, I'm an aircraft mechanic. I want to be the best aircraft mechanic. I'm a podcaster. I want to be the best podcaster. I'm a videographer. I want to be the best videographer. And so what I get with that is I get stress. I get residual stress that I basically put on myself. And so one of the ways that I combat that stress, I actually have a few ways that I combat that stress, but one of the ways that I combat that stress is by creating genuine and close relationships with those around me, right? So I can be able to have meaningful conversation. Another way that I combat stress is I do audiobooks, fiction and nonfiction. I put good things inside my head, and then I also want to entertain myself via the great novels. Another way that I relieve that stress is working out. Last night, I didn't hit the gym. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm so embarrassed about this week. I talk about waking up at 0500 this week. This has been a poor week. That's something else, is I was pretty hard on myself, and that's the reason last night I laid the boys down at 8:30. I hit the gym. I ran 3.5 miles and did more power cleans than to make up for the week. So, man, I'm hungry. Let's get in here and do this paperwork. It's cold outside. I wish I could tell you how cold it is, but I'll tell you it's pretty darn cold. You know, it's nippy. So, what we've done today on a beautiful Friday, we have cleaned the jet. Now, we didn't detail it. What we did was we cleaned what they call the Hollywood side. You know, the side that the passengers walk up to. You know, I basically wiped it down, made sure it was presentable. It's a lot of work for one guy to clean a Gulfstream. So you do what you can like anything else. So we wiped down our jet. We reviewed some paperwork for some actual maintenance that we performed yesterday. These maintenance tracking programs that we use, you actually send them, you print off the work cards, you comply with the work cards, and then you sign them and you send them in via email or via fax. And the analyst assigned to you, and an analyst is basically, he works for the maintenance tracking program, and he's constantly reviewing your tracking program and where your aircraft stands in that. And he's actually the one that you correspond with. So he gets those maintenance work cards that you send him, that you signed off saying that you've complied with them, and he actually signs them off in the system. We don't really have direct access to the system, which is, it's good to have an analyst. It's not good to not be in control. Who wants to render control to another person? Especially us aircraft mechanics, especially us aircraft managers. There's one thing that I can guarantee you, one is control over something. Or if you're going to take care of it, you know, we want to look the other way and let you take care of it. But that isn't the case when you're managing the aircraft. I mean, it's your responsibility, and if something is showing yellow or red, meaning coming due or already due in the system, and you comply with it, you want it back in the green right now. But that's not the case. You got to send in that work card, and you got to wait for your analyst to sign it off. And again, patience is a virtue, right? So we cleaned the Hollywood side of the Gulfstream. We reviewed our paperwork from yesterday, made sure there were no discrepancies in the paperwork that we've already sent in. Check the do list. A do list is basically the status, the maintenance status of your aircraft. So I check the do list on the airplanes to see where they stand, so we can project what maintenance is coming due and then plan accordingly. Meaning plan out when we're actually going to do the maintenance. We went back to the office. We did some invoicing. I can add B-roll in here. Did invoicing. Checked emails. Ate breakfast. Every single morning I like to eat breakfast when I get to the office. I have the same thing every single morning. I have a piece of Ezekiel bread. I toast it. I have 2 fried eggs, olive oil and sea salt, no cheese or anything like that. Mixed nuts and dried berries, a banana, and cottage cheese. And I don't do raw cottage cheese. I do cottage cheese mixed with a little bit of fruit. But you know what? I think I've developed a taste for cottage cheese, and I can do cottage cheese raw at this point. I really love that stuff. It is so good. And I always drink 2 bottles of water. 2 bottles of water with it. I mean, I drink 2 bottles of water with every single meal. I want to stay hydrated. Speaking of, I'm actually thirsty now, ironically enough. And so now, so after we got out of the office, I went over to my helicopter client, and we got a customer in there who was pre-flighting his ship. And so when I say ship, I mean helicopter. He's pre-flighting his helicopter. And so almost made a wrong turn. He was pre-flighting his helicopter, and so, you know, I took a moment to build rapport with the customer, and then I served him and gave him the best value I could at the moment by opening the hangar and pushing this helicopter out. And I didn't record that, but I'll add in some helicopter B-roll. How about that? I'll add in some helicopter B-roll. All right, what else?